We are back, everybody. Our next guest knows all about what it means to fight for what you believe in, and she's come head-to-head with domestic terrorist leaders and even the current president of the United States in the name of that fight.
And she writes all about it in her new book, The Purposeful Warrior, Standing Up for What's Right When the Stakes Are High. Please welcome author and Michigan's Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Jocelyn, I feel like these days a lot of people might describe themselves as warriors, but the cause that they're fighting for may or may not be so noble. So how is a purposeful warrior different?
Well, it's all about, are you improving other people's lives? Are you standing up for yourself, telling your story? And also, is the impact of what you're fighting for making others' lives better? It's about not necessarily fighting against something, but fighting for a better future, not just for yourself, your loved ones, but for your entire community.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've had to be a warrior many, many times already in your career, but we want to go back to 2020. So if we all remember, this is when Trump lost the state of Michigan and also the presidency. This kicked off a wave of conspiracy theories, especially ones surrounding voter fraud at the time. And as Michigan's Secretary of State, and you were also the chief election officer at the time, you stood behind the results of the election firmly. This, however, ended up culminating in an armed mob showing up at your house as a result of this stance position you were taking, standing up to the truth. Yeah. What do you remember from that evening at your home?
Well, it was, before that evening, it was just an incredible time where you had the safe, secure, accurate election. All of the data and all of the investigations affirmed that the current president of the United States, he lost that election, and he couldn't accept that. And so he spread lies, levied threats, and as a result, this armed mob came to my doorstep. And I'm inside with my kid decorating our Christmas tree when you hear these people ascend with bullhorns shouting, "You're a murderer," and all of these other horrible things. It was really scary. But in that moment, I had a choice. We always have a choice. How are we going to react to those things? And I knew that the truth was on our side, the law was on our side, the will of the people was on our side. So I was proud to choose to double down and stand in firm faith for our elections, because I knew those folks weren't protesting me; they were protesting democracy. They were protesting the idea that the will of the people should rule the day. And I'll always proudly stand in defense of the will of the people, the people's voices. So it made me stronger in the end, but it was certainly a scary, harrowing moment.
Yeah. Can't even imagine. All right, so you've had your fair share of experiences with President Trump. He actually attacked you on social media. You clap back, which we love, but I'm wondering, what do you think is the most effective way to communicate with a person like President Trump?
Well, no matter how much power someone has, if they're going to be a bully, there's one way to handle bullies, and that's you stand up unafraid and speak the truth, right? They want us to feel afraid.
Yeah.
They want us to feel small, but only we have the power to allow that feeling to take us over. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent, right? Eleanor Roosevelt. So I take those moments and speak back with the truth, with honesty, but also clear-eyed. In my response, I reminded him that I have a name, and I have a job, and that job is to protect the truth and the people of Michigan, and that's the job I'm always going to do.
Oh, great. So, in your book, you actually talk about how we can utilize or channel rage to our advantage. So what's an example of the time in your career when you used rage in that way?
You know, we're in this era of misinformation and political violence, where you see people losing their lives for standing up for public service and being public servants. And it's enraging to me that the simple act of serving your community, of serving the public, of being an elected official, can lead your family and your loved ones to fear for their lives. Yeah. And that makes me angry, but it also, I funnel that anger into a desire to serve even more, stronger and more effectively, because we cannot let the bullies win. We cannot let those who want to silence us win. And so using that anger to become even more determined, to do my job well and with integrity, is how we can productively use moments like that, not to cause us to run away from that purpose, but to double down in our commitment to it and be even more effective than we would otherwise be.
Wow. Well, you are a battle-tested warrior, certainly, because before your time in politics, you actually worked undercover investigating domestic terrorist groups. And you say that these exchanges, those experiences, that job really taught you how to overcome fear. No kidding. No kidding. So is there an interaction or an exchange from those investigations, that helped form a certain lesson for you or taught you something?
Yeah, there was this one time time, I was really young, 20 years old, covering this guy in South Carolina who was claiming to be the next Hitler. And I was tracking him, trying to figure out who he really was. And at the end of the day, we discovered who he really was and started to tell that story. But I was really afraid he was going to discover who I was and do harm to me or my family. And so I had a moment this evening where I was all alone in this hotel room in South Carolina, and I thought, okay, I've got a choice. I could run away and cower in fear, or I could choose to double down, go to work, expose this guy, and do the work I was here to do. And that's what I did. I chose courage in that moment over fear, and through that, I not only wrote a story that ultimately exposed him and brought down the organization, but I started to build this bravery muscle. Every time we choose courage in moments large and small, we build a muscle that makes it easier for us to take that harder choice in the future when it's the right thing to do.
Yes,
Great.
that's
Good
it.
reminder.
That's it.
I'm just gonna move your hair out of here. Let's keep talking about warriors, because there's many ways to be a warrior. You've run over 30 marathons, and I want to talk about one in particular.
Wow.
You ran the Boston Marathon when you were 8 months pregnant. That is incredible. I just want to know, what was going through your mind when you crossed the finish line?
One foot in front of the other. You know, and when I started that marathon, and you know, I feel this way every time I start a race or a big task, I never fully believe that I can do it. It's just really insightful. Like, I always doubt myself, as we do. I mean, it's real. But one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, we can achieve more than we ever imagined when we start out on a journey. And it was a lesson to me in that even though I didn't think I could do it, I could. I could do hard things. And we all can do hard things when we stay committed, build resilience, persevere, and put one foot in front of the other until the job is done.
Yep, that's it. Well, you know, the whole idea behind your book and the idea of finding purpose, that can be really, really daunting. So if someone's watching right now and they're struggling, thinking, you know, like, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing here? What's the advice you can give?
I think it's important to remember we all have a unique perspective and voice that needs to be heard, that when we speak our truth and we share our stories, it only enriches the world around us. And, you know, no one has the power to define us. We have that power, and we can't give it to anyone else, because the power of the people will always be greater than the people in power when we choose to harness that power and seek a better world. And my call to action in this book is that we all can be purposeful warriors on behalf of ourselves, our communities, the people we love. And if we do that, we can take down any bully, any force that's trying to silence people or dehumanize people or use chaos and cruelty to oppress communities. We can be the future if we stand in furtherance of who we are, ourselves, our truth, and our stories.
So good.
Fabulous. Great note to end this interview. Thank you so much for stopping by. Once again, the book is called The Purposeful Warrior, and you can find it in stores everywhere right now. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.